Today on Around and About, Sue Williams Silverman talks about the craft of memoir writing. Silverman is the author of several books. Her memoir, Lovesick, was made into a Lifetime TV movie. Another memoir, Because I Remember Terror, Father, I Remember You, is a candid look at her abusive childhood. Silverman has also written a guide to memoir writing called Fearless Confessions. Recently, she stopped by Rock Point Books in Chattanooga to talk about her work and why memoir writing matters.
Well, I think it's really important for everybody to tell kind of his or her story. And I think that after I finished writing the two memoirs, I realized sort of the power of it. I mean, after each of my memoirs was published, I received so many emails from mainly women, but men too, but mainly women who really identified with my story.
Silverman says her memoirs address very tough, very personal issues like sexual abuse and addiction. Lovesick tells of a life of self-destructive behavior and recovery. Critics have called it an honest, deeply chilling account of what it's like to suffer from a compulsion and look for love in the wrong places. Silverman's audience appreciates that kind of honesty.
And with each of the books, just the response was so empowering and amazing to get all of these emails and phone calls and letters from women who, had been struggling with the same things, but, really didn't have a voice. So, in effect, they kind of thanked me for telling their story. But then I realized there are so many stories out there and that everybody does have a story to tell. So that's why I then wrote this craft book called Fearless Confessions, A Writer's Guide to Memoir.
I asked Silverman, for people who do want to write their own stories, what are some of the major pieces of advice in her guide?
Well, I think that the important thing in order to make your story kind of universal so that other people can relate to it is to really sort of define the metaphors of your experience. I mean, like, what are sort of the objects, what are sort of the details in your life that really would kind of, the way that you can describe them in a sort of metaphoric way.
In one childhood memoir, she talks about having to shoplift a pair of pajamas so she can go to a friend's sleepover party and fit in with the other girls. She says those stolen pajamas took on mythic proportions to her during her youth, a metaphor for her whole unhealthy experience. And in memoir writing, those kind of symbols can be universal ways to connect with the audience.
Because, obviously not everybody's going to have a pair of pajamas in their life that was important to them, but it's really, how are those pajamas symbolic? They were symbolic because it made me feel like I fit in. So, what things, say if you grew up feeling lonely or alienated, what things in your life either would sort of exemplify that or help make you feel like you fit in with, your peers, your friends?
Silverman also says in memoir writing, the important thing is it's more than just the story of what happened.
Finding kind of the story behind the story. What did all of these events mean? So that's sort of the journey of the memoir. So, in other words, in a memoir, you have to take the reader on a journey, like, what is your story? And so who you are at the end of the book is going to be different from who you are at the beginning.
Silverman also says it's not easy to write so candidly about herself, but it's important. And she says she doesn't sugarcoat the traumatic experiences she recounts in her books, and there's a good reason for that.
Because that would be that's a different kind of a lie in a way, to be kind of pretend that something was fine when it wasn't. I mean, writing a memoir can be tough. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's not. But you have to feel comfortable sitting in your dark places and really be willing to go sort of to right along the bone. I mean, really get into the heart of the matter. And it's not easy, and sometimes you have to take a break. But if you're not going to be emotionally authentic in your memoir, it's almost like, why bother even writing it?
Silverman says that although her books do deal with specific issues, they're really about any kind of childhood losses.
People who read my books, it's not that they have all had exactly the same similar experience, but, everybody has their own sort of story, and there is that kind of human condition, and very few people grow up in what you would call a normal family. I mean, who knows what that even is? I mean, we all have losses. We all feel alienated. We all at times feel like we don't fit in. And so in many ways, my books are as much about that, about finding a self. I mean, finding an identity and kind of a search for identity.
In addition to writing, Silverman also teaches. I asked her, are there students who say they'd like to write but have nothing to write about?
Oh, that happens to me all the time. It makes me feel sad. Yes, first of all, I teach writing at Vermont College of Fine Arts, and I do have a lot of students who think, oh, well, nothing like that bad happened to me, and, I don't maybe really have anything to say. And I get so upset because everybody has a story. It doesn't matter what it is. If you feel strongly about it, then it will be a good memoir. I mean, you can write about, growing up in a farm in the middle of Kansas or something, and if you feel really strongly about that, it'll be a great memoir. I had a student who wrote, she loved dirt. I mean, she did grow up in a farm. She loved dirt, so she wrote this essay about dirt. And it was a great essay. I mean, so the only prerequisite is that you absolutely feel urgent and kind of compulsive about your subject, and then it'll be a good story. And it doesn't matter what it is. You do not have to grow up in some horrible childhood or anything. Just care about what you're writing about.
Silverman says she encourages everyone to believe in their own stories. More information about her books, including her guide Fearless Confessions, is available at www.SueWilliamSilverman.com. I'm Michael Edward Miller, reporting for Around and About.
This program is made possible by funding from listeners just like you who support public radio. Around and About provides a bridge to your communities with interviews and stories about events in our area. This is a production of WUTC Chattanooga.